Welcome to a Monday edition of Beyond the Arc. I'm your host, John Gonzalez, alongside in studio, Ashley Nicole Moss, and our NBA insider, Bill Ryder, who I think is in some sort of hostage situation. Bill, hold up today's newspaper as proof of life.
So in lieu of our bet in which I put real money on the actual Phoenix Suns, I've gone into hiding just because of the shame of it, John.
Or
It's
he
a
had
witness
to,
protection thing.
or he had to move out of his lovely LA home because he has no money left.
My wife kicked. Let's real talk. My wife kicked me out. Thanks for the bet, John. Thank you.
Sparing no expense in his new life on the road. All right, we got so much basketball to talk about. Playoffs started this weekend. Later in the show, we're going to discuss the Clippers winning without Kawhi, Ant-Man stepping up for the Wolves, and OKC hanging in to beat the Pels last night. But first, where else could we possibly start, especially with this crew? The Knicks and the Sixers. Knicks win game one, 111-104. They've now won 6 in a row. They snapped the Sixers' 9-game winning streak. Sixers 32-9 still with Joel Embiid, but a little bit of a scare with Joel Embiid where he went down. He threw one of the most amazing, like Tracy McGrady-esque dunks off the backboard to himself, threw it down. And then, much like my hopes for this series, he immediately crumpled. Ashley, naturally, you get to go first.
Yeah, so there's a bunch of things in this series. Obviously, Knicks in 6, baby, Knicks in 6. After I get that out of the way, my concern with Joel Embiid is this. Obviously, he's able to go ahead and combat whatever issues are going on with his knee. That fall was extremely scary. I mean, his eyes didn't even look like they were in tune with his body. Like, they were going all over the place. Like, it was a very, very frightening moment there on the court. I was actually very, very, very surprised he even returned. We were texting about it. I tweeted about it. Here's the thing, though. There was a part of the game in the second half where there was blood, like, coming through his sleeve on his knee. My thing is this, is I don't know if his knee can withstand the physicality of this series, and that's a big concern, right? Because you need him on the court to even give you a fighting chance. The Sixers are drastically better with Joel Embiid. That's nothing that any of us can argue. The stats are there, the statistics are there, the numbers are there. So you need him, but can he withstand the physicality? This is going to be a very physical series. It's going 6 games. It might even go 7, depending on how everything kind of unravels. And you already have Joel Embiid, who is not statistically in the postseason the greatest fourth quarter player, and now you're adding on to the fact that he's not 100%. You're adding on to the fact that the Knicks have all these weapons that they can use, and Tibbs is going deep in his rotation, in part because he doesn't have a choice, because Julius Randle's not there. If I was a 76ers fan, I'm not concerned if I can compete. I'm concerned at what cost. And the cost right now, for me, the biggest question mark, Joel Embiid.
So, you know that moment where you're with two good friends and they get in a horrible fight and you're just sitting there, or you're with your parents and they start going at each other and you just would rather be anywhere else? That was me watching the two of you text one another when we thought Joel Embiid had gone down. Because Ash was coming at you, John, and I could feel your sadness. It's very appropriate, by the way, Ash, that they've got a Knicks-colored Beyond the Arc logo behind you. So, look, I don't have the same emotional stake in this series, obviously, that the two of you do. And I don't usually buy into the idea of teams being snake bit or cursed, although John is starting to win me over because we've got news that Tyrese Maxey is questionable tonight with an illness, wasn't at shoot-around. That's obviously going to be a game-time decision. We don't know how sick he is. I certainly don't know. I've asked, I haven't heard back. But it reinforces that this Sixers team is both good enough to beat the Knicks, and I think the Knicks are obviously good enough, Ash, to win this series too. It's a really good showdown. But they might not even be able to compete if Embiid continues to be banged up and if Maxey can't play in this game. It's obviously a huge, huge blow. I will say this in defense of the Knicks. And we saw a lot of this over the weekend with a lot of games. Jalen Brunson was fine. Like, he played well, but the Josh Hart game is not necessarily something I expected to have happen. What's the
Hold on, you forgot a name, Bill. You said Josh Hart, but you also
Brunson was okay. He wasn't really Brunson in that game.
You said the Josh Hart game, but
he was fine.
It was also the Deuce game, plus 37 from him. Yeah. Absolutely just fire off the bench. Love him.
To your point about the depth, Brunson's going to get his. I don't think he was bad, John. He wasn't the guy, and he wasn't that impactful. It bodes really well for the Knicks. We always overreact to series. We always overreact to teams that win the first game. Every home team won their opener this NBA weekend. Not every home team is going to win their series. But I'm kind of starting to come around to John's way of thinking, which is your team, John, Philly. There's something about them that just feels destined to be disappointing because they should be good enough, and it just feels like we keep coming up craps again and again and again. I said we. You.
If it wasn't, yeah, you're welcome to hop on the bandwagon. There's plenty of space.
I'll
Everybody's hopping off. If it wasn't for bad luck, there would be no luck in Philadelphia at all. And for sure, if Embiid isn't right, this series is going to be pretty quick and probably quicker than Knicks in 6, as Ashley keeps yelling at us. Unfortunately for me, I want to throw to Nick Nurse was asked about it afterwards. Here's what he had to say about Embiid.
I don't think so, Keith. I don't think so. I think. Listen, he's really a warrior and he's battling, and I think he absolutely wants to play. But let's see how he turns out here tonight.
So I have a
Let's see how he turns out here tonight. Hold on, I got a question for you, Ashley.
Yeah.
Because you were very passionate and very demonstrative, not just on this show, but on social media, saying that Embiid should not come back. My question for you is, how is it different than OG? OG came back, and you were super excited about it. But OG has been similarly unavailable throughout his entire career. He's had a ton of injury. He's only played 70 games once. He's played 50 or fewer in 4 of the last 5 seasons. He is every bit as unavailable frequently as Embiid is, and yet you're thrilled that he's out there. How's it different?
It's a few things that are different. He doesn't have a surgically repaired knee. That's obviously not 100%. He's also younger.
He has surgically repaired a lot of other things.
He's also younger than Joel Embiid, and your body heals differently due to age. So, I mean, that's a factor. A 20-something-year-old is different than a 30-plus-year-old. So that's that. But for me...
Embiid is 30.
Okay, well, 30 plus. As I said, 30 plus, 30 and plus. I'm 30 plus. I think also for me, though, one of the things that I feel like the biggest difference is if you saw OG came back, wasn't 100%. The Knicks completely removed him from the lineup until he was. I don't think when Joel Embiid returned, he was 100%. I think he just wanted to play. And as you said, multiple times when we were texting about it, his mental was taking a toll not being able to play. And maybe that was a lot of the reason why he was able to kind of come back before he probably should have. But you're talking about Joel Embiid in a series that's going to be extremely physical. If this was a different series and it was a little bit more of a lax one, I don't think I would have as much concern about Joel Embiid's overall health as I do now. On top of that, a physical series, the man's playing for Team USA. So that's another
Hopefully not.
Well, I mean, if he's playing this series, there's no way he's not going to play Team USA, especially after he told France to kick rocks.
There's time for somebody to talk some sense into him.
But this is my point, right? At what point do you have to look out for the player's well-being and overall quality of life and overall career instead of the immediate impact or the immediate goal of the team, which is obviously to win a series, but how realistic is it that this 76ers team is going Eastern Conference Finals or Finals? At what point do you have to draw a line in the sand and say, look, we know you want to play, we know what this means to you, but having you next season is more important than having you this season. If something happens, your entire season next year is completely derailed once again. I just don't know at what point do you have to have a conversation where you save the player from himself. And that's kind of like where I stand with this Joel Embiid thing.
Look, you both have a lot of emotion tied up in this. I'm playing Joel Embiid, and I don't know how many windows he has. This is a really hard series against the Knicks, but there is a clear path forward at a minimum to a conference finals, and anything can happen. I know Boston would eventually almost certainly be there, presuming they're healthy. Even if they have an injury, they're probably still there. Ash, I hear what you're saying, and I get it. I think if I'm the Sixers, I have spent so much time waiting on Embiid and understanding that we had to protect him early in his career. And this is a guy who wants to play. And even if it's a long shot, I don't think it's that long of a shot. I'm going for it. I'm playing the guy. And if he gets hurt, and I know that's an outcome, then he doesn't play the Olympics. He's got the offseason to recover. John, I know you're actually tied up in this as a fan, but for me at least, and I hear what you're saying, Ash, it makes sense. I'm just saying I don't know how many windows I have with Embiid. I don't know how many windows I have with Embiid in Philly as a guarantee. I'm going for it right now because I think this team can be special if he can get through this postseason.
Ultimately, I think it comes down to he's been an injury risk his entire career. And if he wants to play and if he can play, then he should play because otherwise he should just retire. I mean, if it's at the point now where we're saving the player from himself, then like he's never going to come back. So at this, it's just what it is. And you run him out there and you hope for the best and you keep your fingers crossed because that's been his entire time in the NBA. All right, quickly before we go to break, You guys want a prediction for tonight? I believe that the Knicks are a 6-point favorite this evening.
Knicks take game 2.
Can I do a caveat whether or not, if Maxey plays? Look, I'm not flipping on my picks because of one game. I had the Sixers winning this thing. I still think they're going to win it. It's a coin flip. As I understand the math, I do need the Philadelphia to win a game at the Garden. So I'll just go with a win tonight. We always overreact to series. Maxey gets healthy. He has his flu game. Embiid guts it out. 3-point win, and it's a very different show tomorrow when you guys are talking about this series.
I also have Knicks tonight. In keeping with my Knicks in 3 prediction. All right, we're going to go to break, and then on the other side, we're going to discuss Clippers picking up kind of a surprising win against the Mavs without Kawhi Leonard. That is next right here on CBS Sports Network. All right, welcome back to Beyond the Arc. John, Ashley, and Bill here. You can find us wherever you get your favorite podcasts. Please download and subscribe and leave us a review. All right, Clippers and Mavs. This is a series that, aside from Knicks and Sixers, Clippers and Mavs, I think is safe to say the 3 of us, were very excited about this. I believe we all picked the Mavs. And then the Clippers were like, hold on a second.
I blame you,
They
John.
win 109.
You did.
What, you did not?
No, I
You
did.
took
I just
Clippers?
blame you for having convinced me. No, I took
Oh,
the
that's right.
I
That's
just
right.
blame you.
Yeah, you took the Mavs.
Yeah,
I
should've known
talked you
better.
into it. I'll take the heat for that. But they win 109-97 without Kawhi. Kawhi has missed his last 9 games. This is very interesting for a lot of reasons, not the least of which is that the Mavs only put up 8 points in the second quarter. And I know we're going to get into the Luka and the whole how he's played in the postseason bit. But this is a very impressive win for the Clippers. Also because Bill and Ashley, James Harden was good. I know we've seen James Harden be good in the playoffs before, but they needed him in this game and he delivered.
Yeah, I mean, Bill, you want to go ahead and take this first?
I mean, look, I'll say some nice things. Look, I have a sort of nice thing about Harden and maybe a not so nice. It's a very long series, and the issue with James Harden has never been a focus on games 1 or 2. The issue has been games 5 or 6 or 7. That said, after the game, when he wasn't talking about how he's still a world-class scorer, and look, maybe he is, he talked about his role. It's a different role than he certainly had in Houston, and maybe to a degree that he had when he was in Philadelphia. I know he's got to be more impactful and more involved. He's going to take more shots when Kawhi Leonard's not playing, which obviously he wasn't in game 1. But this is a guy who can facilitate more. I know Paul George was sort of quiet, but that's still the superstar that's out there. Russell Westbrook had a really good game. And how many shots did he take, John? Did Harden take, I think it was just 17 shots? Does that sound right? I mean, it was a very efficient night. It was a very impressive night. And maybe he's just found the place. Like Kyrie Irving in Dallas, maybe it's just a place that fits his skill set and where he's at today. Because I've talked a lot about usage rates and guys that dominate the ball and how that does not translate to postseason success. It hasn't for James Harden. There's a Luka conversation there that we've had before. But this is a different version of Harden. This is a different version of what's asked of him. And at least in game 1, it was one game. Yeah, he looked outstanding, and credit to him.
Yeah, I mean, listen, I think this game says more about the Mavs being just a completely different team than what we have seen. It's just uncharacteristic of them. I don't think we'll see this version of them again, right? Because looking at the team breakdown, right, the 3-pointers that Clippers shot and made, 50% from the 3 is just insane. I mean, it's hard to play defense, and we keep talking about how well the Mavs were playing defensively down the stretch of the regular season. It's hard to play defense when a team is shooting 50% from the 3. It's debilitating, it's hard to defend, and because you're so stretched out defensively, you leave certain spots on the court open, you leave certain shots open, and the Clippers were taking advantage of it all. They were also killing them from the field, 46 to their 38. So it was just a bad shooting night for Dallas, and that's something that you really don't often see. So again, it's more of an uncharacteristic game from the Mavs. I don't know if this is going to be just the overall vibe of this series. I do think we'll get a drastically different version of the Mavericks in game 2, especially game 3 and 4 when they go home. But it's impressive for a game 1. I mean, you defend home court. A series doesn't start till someone loses at home, and the Clippers did what they needed to do, especially with Kawhi out, so kudos to them. But it's a long series, so I'm still sticking with the Mavericks.
It was a weird game for a lot of reasons. Like Zubac had a great game.
Yeah.
He went for 20 and 15.
He
And my
was
guy
so
Daniel
good.
Gafford my guy Daniel Gafford was an absolute no-show in this game, and he owned it afterwards. He was like, look, he got knocked a little bit, dinged up a little bit early on, but he didn't play many minutes. He was such an integral part. We have talked about this at length in the show, but he was such an integral part of that team that went 16-2 down the stretch and like really figured out its defense. And then you're like, all right, we really landed on something with Daniel Gafford. Plus he's super efficient. And then he just like absolutely no-showed. I want to talk about Luka and Kyrie too, because they combined for 64 points. Luka had 33 on 26 shots, not his most effective, efficient game, but he has been pretty good for them in the playoffs numbers wise. It's just that it hasn't really translated to wins. I'm going to run this past you. I texted this to you guys. Luka in his last 6 playoff games versus the Clips, 33.5 points per game, 8.5 rebounds, 10.5 assists per game, right? In the last 6 playoff games. That's really impressive. He's even shot 47% over that stretch, but he only has 1 win in those 6 games.
Yeah,
I mean, this is a 33. Oh, sorry, Ash.
No,
33, 13 and 6 game, I think, is what Luka had. And if you didn't watch the game or you just looked at the box score, it's, oh, this guy's amazing. But, John, it wasn't a good game. It wasn't a good performance. The goal is not to just pad the stats. He was awful in the first half. He was incredibly inefficient. He got so frustrated. There were multiple times where he was getting mad at his teammates, which isn't what a leader does. Now, I don't want to overblow it. These things happen. Guys get passionate. But there is massive pressure on Luka Doncic to win this series and to start performing in the postseason and to get out of the first round for the second time in his career. And we didn't know this before, but the only time he's gotten out of the first round, and to be fair, they made a run to the conference finals, he had this guy named Jalen Brunson at his side that maybe other than Ash, nobody saw coming. I didn't think Jalen Brunson was going to be what he is with the Knicks. So, look, it's one game. Mm-hmm. I'm not going to make any bold statements or change my mind on anything today on the show after one game and after each of these series. We always overreact, and we being me in the media. We NBA writers, I overreact back in the day. Teams get down 1-0 or 2-0 and you feel like the series is over. It's not. I thought the Mavs would win. I still think the Mavs are going to win. But Luka Doncic having just a horrible first half and really letting the Clippers set the tone and take control of the game. I know the box score, the final score of the game was closer than it looked. But this game was over early because Luka didn't show up. And the reality is Luka's got to show up. And when he doesn't, you can't expect, or I think even blame his sidekicks outside of Kyrie, who had a good game, for not being there to carry him, because that's not the way that this offense works. It's not the way this team works. Luka dominates the ball, and they go as he goes. And if he's going to have a bad game, and it was a bad game, whatever the final box score, they're not going to have a chance to win the series. He's got to play better.
I think it's
Ash,
interesting.
I would argue that nobody else showed up. Nobody else showed up for the Mavs.
They didn't show up when they needed to show up. They showed up when it was too late, when your back's already against the wall. And playing from behind is debilitating. I mean, that was a huge gap that they had to go ahead and constantly dig at, and their defensive efforts weren't working, so you couldn't even stop the bleeding on one side of the game and to go ahead and focus on the other. It was just kind of like shoveling sand at the beach, and the waves keep coming and filling up the hole even more, and you just got to start from zero. But I think that there is light at the end of the tunnel in the situation, right? Because you look at Kawhi with the inflammation in his knee. The more the Clippers are able to win without him, that's more time that Kawhi won't be on the court. Because for what reason? So you can use that towards your advantage, because Kawhi being implemented back into the rotation does make this a drastically different series. With him out, you're able to capitalize on that. And after the game that the Clippers had game 1, I would be surprised to see Kawhi come back game 2, because you saw what you can do without him. You saw you can go ahead and beat this team without him. Even if it was a bad, uncharacteristic night for the Mavericks, you still went ahead and you handled business. So it's more time for him to rest. It's more time for him to not have to go ahead and put any strain on that knee with the inflammation. The Mavs can use that to their advantage, but they have to be able to score and they have to be able to defend. And if they can't do that in game 2 is going to be the telltale sign. If they're unable to get back to the Mavs that we saw down the stretch of the regular season, the series they don't stand a chance to win this at all, because Kawhi will eventually come back. And even if he doesn't, because they're winning without him, it's clear that they don't need him to beat the Dallas Mavericks.
Game 2 on Tuesday, Kawhi's status still up in the air. I don't know, somebody else other than, it wasn't, as Bill said, it wasn't a good, efficient Luka game, but only Luka and Kyrie and PJ Washington were in double figures. You need more than just 2.5 guys, because PJ just barely made it into double figures. But whoever loses this series is going to have massive questions for the offseason. That should be awfully interesting. All right, quick break, and then we're going to get into yet another series that is near and dear to our heart here at Beyond the Arc. We're going to talk Wolves and Suns next, right here on CBS Sports Network. All right, welcome back to Beyond the Arc. Be sure to check us out on our YouTube page at Beyond the Arc CBS. Subscribe to it, hit the like button, leave a comment. You can see all these videos. We chop them up for you, little digestible bites. All right, Wolves and Suns. This is a series that has gotten a lot of traction on our show because Bill and I have a bet that Ashley has already won, as well as our podcast producer, Aaron. I've got the Wolves. Bill has the Suns. The loser has to buy dinner for everybody. I'm one game closer. Wolves won this game 120-95. Looked great. It's their first win over the Suns this season. And also, Ant-Man stepped up big time. He looked amazing. 33 points, 9 rebounds, 6 assists, 2 steals. And on top of that, at one point in the third quarter, gang, KD decided, all right, I got to slow this guy down. I'm going to take the defensive assignment. I love to see that from KD. Ant-Man did not shrink from the spotlight even a little bit. In fact, he drained a 3 in KD's face, and then he talked trash to him. And so naturally, Ant was asked about it afterwards. Here's what he said.
The little back and forth with Kevin Durant there in the third quarter. How fun is that, and what do you make of the atmosphere tonight?
I think everybody here knows that's my favorite player of all time, so that was probably one of the best feelings ever in my whole life, for sure. These guys came in here and whooped us in our home court the last game of the season and was giggling, laughing, you know. I mean, like Bill said, he told our coach that he don't think we play hard enough, and he was right, you know what I mean? Like, Finchie didn't like that. He came in the next day and was like, man, you got guys on the other team telling me that y'all don't play hard enough for me, and he was totally right. Like, we was out there just running around, letting them doing what they want to do, man, and that's a great team, man. All 3 of those guys, they're great players, man. It's going to be hard to beat these guys. We got to bring it every night. It's just one game. They're going to be ready to go the next time we play them.
I love that dude, even though I hate that dude, because he's the reason I'm going to lose this bet. All right, so, John, you'll know this. This will hit close. Process, not results. Process, not results. Unfortunately, I had the right process. Young teams do struggle in the postseason. It is a big leap. They usually can't handle it. We saw that with New Orleans and with the Thunder. Obviously, one of those teams had to win. We saw it with the Pacers. We saw it with the Magic. I thought we would see it with the Timberwolves. Unfortunately, Anthony Edwards is just – he's cut differently. He's a different – I mean, he's so Jordan-like. It's so frustrating. I did not anticipate his greatness. So, yes, there's technically – your team has to win 3 more games, but congratulations. You've won the bet. I'm very happy. This is for you. Let me just get – I want to celebrate.
Look what you did. Ridiculous.
Anthony Edwards did it.
Listen, this doesn't work on me. You merely adopted the dark. I was born in it.
Okay, Bane. Batman.
I know all about the reverse jigs. Go ahead, Ash.
When Anthony Edwards is more of a winner than KD, Ash. Sorry, I surrender. After you, I'll go sit in the darkness over here.
Listen, I love it. Anthony, Michael Jordan, Edwards, right? He's proving more and more why he's going to be the face, if not one of the faces of the league for many years to come. And I love that exchange between him and KD. KD is such a hooper that he loves that. That's why he was smiling. Like, I think, people get the wrong idea of Kevin Durant sometimes, the things that he says maybe on Twitter or in his interviews, but he really eats, breathes, and sleeps this sport. So seeing that next generation come in and having the confidence to kind of get their lick back after the Suns went into Minnesota and just demolished them in the regular season, you could see he was enjoying it. On the Suns part, though, I mean, Devin Booker has to show up. We kind of talk about this when we talk about the Phoenix Suns, right? They're not as deep as you would want them to be, or maybe as we thought that they were when they did kind of well on the margins after acquiring Bradley Beal. But they're still such a top-heavy team that when one domino falls, the rest of them suffer as well. And Devin Booker being a non-factor was a huge domino effect on the rest of that team. And you just can't have that happening when you're already at a deficit. And I do think that the Suns will snap back and win game 2 just because, again, when you talk about Devin Booker, although he didn't have a good game, it is still Devin Booker and Kevin Durant. You can never count them out. But I don't know. This series may go 6-7 when I thought it was going to go a little bit shorter than that. So I don't know. Clearly, the Timberwolves know something that we don't know about the Suns, or they're drinking some sort of water out there, trying to raise their stock. They're trying to get sold, and there's a bidding war. I saw what's his name, A-Rod there at the game, trying to creep in and look at his future.
I wonder if he had to sneak in with Glenn Taylor banning him and Mark Lore.
He might have had to
from the arena. I think it's interesting how they won this game, how the Wolves won this game, because we've talked about how the Wolves play through the defense, but it was the second biggest playoff win in their franchise history. All right, granted, they don't have a lot of franchise wins of note, so just put that aside for a second, but they dominated the boards, and when they win on the boards, they win 70% of their games. They dominated points in the paint. They're top 10 in opponents scoring in the paint. Whereas the Suns, they're 29th in scoring in the paint. They're bad at it anyway. And then to Ashley's point about how the Suns are kind of thin, they dominated bench points as well. And once Grayson Allen went down, now you've lost another guy in your rotation for the Suns, so it makes it that much harder. I just thought that the way they played defensively was good. And on top of it, by the way, we had questions about Cat, right? Minus 22 in his final 2 regular season games after returning. He comes back, goes for 19, 7, and 4. Bill at the beginning of the game texted us and said, "Oh, I'm loving Invisible Cat." And then all of a sudden Cat emerged and looked really good. And then on top of that, and I know you guys want to get to the go. You did, Drinkson. Thank you so much for that.
I did.
Rudy Gobert played an excellent game. I was very nervous, worried about Rudy Gobert, because in the playoffs, the knock against him, the blueprint against him is drag him away from the basket, which accomplishes 2 things. Number 1, it keeps him from doing what he does best, which is protect the rim. And number 2, when you switch him onto a smaller guard, now it's a foot race to the basket, and he loses those all the time. But they didn't do that this time. He looked really good, played excellent defense. And yet there are people who we'll call them detractors.
Haters? You want to?
Yeah, go ahead. Set up the haters.
So
Ash.
there was a list that came out, the annual most overrated NBA players list. And there are a few other lists, like who would you want to start your franchise with and X, Y, and Z. But the one that we're focusing on right now is most overrated. This is a list that comes out every single year for the past, I want to say, 5 years. And it's anonymous, so people can hate behind closed doors, because that's what we do in 2024, apparently. And Rudy Gobert has dethroned Trae Young, who I think had the title last year as the most overrated player in the NBA. You see here, it's Rudy Gobert, Jordan Poole, poor Jordan Poole, Trae Young, Dylan Brooks, and James Harden. I did not have a vote, so don't ask me. I did not vote for him. 81 players were surveyed out of the 400 plus that are in the NBA. But it's interesting that Rudy Gobert is kind of sitting at the top of the list. I understand that he may not be the most liked, but we're talking about a 3-time Defensive Player of the Year, maybe going on 4. It's hard to kind of say that's overrated. You may not be likable, but overrated seems like a little bit of a stretch, just a tad.
There are haters out there. It's you two with this survey, which I absolutely love. Ash, nobody is gonna be honest if it's not anonymous. And this is actually excellent reporting by The Athletic. I think
what's the point?
It's really
Bill?
interesting. And I want to know what players around the NBA think. This kind
Who
of candor
cares?
only comes. I care. You should care. You brought it up. You're the one that wanted
No,
to talk
but
about
what
it
I'm
today.
saying
You
is,
care.
what I'm
What do you
saying,
mean,
no,
who
what
cares?
I'm
This is your
saying is,
idea.
an anonymous poll is beneficial when it benefits the entirety of the league. Like if we're anonymously voting on, I don't know, the health benefits in the new
Well, it's
CBA or something.
entertainment.
Who cares if you think Rudy
Sports is
Gobert is
entertainment.
overrated? How does that affect you?
How does it affect me if, I don't know, Kevin Durant scores 50? Why do I care? Because I love sports and I care about the game and I care about all the dramas that go on within it. Now, I will say this. It also mostly accurately reflects just the casual conversations I have with people, and I'm sure you two do as well, because you're right. Trae Young, not beloved. People think he's overrated. That's a fact. Rudy Gobert, maybe they're wrong. They think that. The only one that doesn't make sense is Jordan Poole. How can you be overrated if nobody rates you? But maybe Draymond voted 9 times. Like maybe Draymond just literally voted for Jordan 9 different times. The thing is, I do think it's interesting, and I think here's why it matters. This is a view out there, and John already hit on this from an X's and O's perspective, that Gobert doesn't work and that he doesn't translate to the playoffs, and that there are ways to take his excellent defensive efficiency and excellence, and it's real, and all those awards and make them look silly in the playoffs. And there's also jealousy in every walk of life, including sports. People are jealous of those awards. AD was mad today because he's not one of the final 3, saying the league hates him. This is a chance for Rudy Gobert to show that he is not, in fact, overrated, a view that many NBA players have.
1, 2, 3.
It's an award.
DPOY.
It ain't a ring.
The reason why I thought it was silly, and we're going to go to break here, but the reason why I thought it was silly is because when they couched it, when The Athletic couched it, was NBA players vote Rudy Gobert most overrated. No. A small sample size of NBA players.
Small.
81 players. Hold on.
81 of 500? That's not a small sample size.
Let me finish my point. 81 players didn't vote for Rudy Gobert. 81 players were polled, and of those 81, 13.6%, 13.6% voted for Rudy Gobert, which works out to 11 players. 11 players in the NBA voted for him as the most overrated.
Numbers guy. You know that 81 out of 450 or 500 guys is an absolutely reasonable sample size. If it were somebody who didn't know math and they made that erroneous claim, I'd understand.
11 people.
You know that's wrong.
11 people. 11
you know
people.
How math works, John.
I'm telling you how math works. 11 people.
Not very effective.
I literally just explained the math to you. It's 11 people. 11 people in the NBA voted him.
Out of 81
that
voters,
been more
which is
accurate.
a huge chunk. Do you want them to survey the entire NBA community?
It's a disingenuous framing to say
how many have to be surveyed for it to work?
players voted him.
How many have to be surveyed for it to work? 300?
More accurate would have been
every player?
More accurate would have been. You can't deny that it was just 11 people. 11 people is not a big deal. All right, we're going to go to break. On the other side,
how big does the survey size? I want an answer. How big does the survey size has to be for it to work for you on math-wise? If not 81, how much is it? 200?
If you look at all of the other, it wasn't just that poll. You're not going to filibuster me, Bill. If you look at all of the other polls that were done, there were multiples more that people responded to in the poll. It wasn't just that one poll. More than 11. More than 11. All right.
More than 81.
We're going to take a break. On the other side, somebody cut Bill's mic. On the other side, we're going to do Oklahoma City and the Pelicans. That's next, right here on CBS Sports Network. All right, welcome back to a spirited edition of Beyond the Arc. John, Ashley, and Bill here. We're going to talk about Oklahoma City and the Pelicans. Great game, went down to the wire. One of the only games the entire of the 8 this weekend that went down to the wire. There were 20 lead changes, 13 ties. OKC hangs in for a 94-92 win. All 8 home teams won in game 1. First time that's happened in over a decade. I think this is a good, look, neither of these teams have playoff experience. And certainly SGA and Chet and those guys didn't look their best in this game, Ashley. But hey, home win for the number 1 seed. Pull it out. You got to get experience somehow. And I think they got a little bit of it.
Yeah, it was a great atmosphere. OKC was lit. I would say OKC and lit in the same sentence, but here we are. Yeah. OKC and it was lit. The atmosphere was loving it. The OKC Thunder, they did go ahead and pull out that win last minute. Just really went ahead and down the stretch, just narrowed in. CJ McCollum, not a great shot. Had a great look, not a great shot. It reminds me of the Patrick Ewing meme where he goes, do you practice that shot? What is that shot? Do you work on that shot? It was just bad. He had a chance to win the game. They didn't win it. All in all, though, I think the series is exciting because I think it tells the story of what the West is going to look like for years and years to come. And I think that's the biggest thing that I take away from it. I don't think any of these teams, regardless of who wins, is going to go ahead and be hoisting up a trophy this year. But I do think that it speaks to the changing of the guard. And we see the changing of the guard happen every decade or so in the NBA when it comes to players and teams. And I think both of these teams will be in the Western Conference in the playoff conversation for many years to come. Obviously, the biggest question mark with the Pelicans moving forward, regardless if they win the series or not, is about Zion. Where Zion will be, is it going to be in the jersey with the Pelicans on the front, or is it going to be elsewhere? I do think, though, that you need to make a decision on what that is, because I don't know if the current construct of this team can survive as the West continues to evolve, grow, and get better. Outside of that, though, I think there's a lot of promise in New Orleans. I think that OKC, so much promise. They haven't even hit their ceiling yet. Such a great team. Those guys, I think you'll be able to keep together. For me, the biggest question mark going, looking at the series as a whole, though, is New Orleans. What's going to happen regardless of the outcome of this series?
Fun game, nervy game, really maybe for a national audience, maybe people who haven't paid attention, all the reasons John's been espousing how talented and interesting this Oklahoma City team is. And look, the series isn't over. We know it's one game. I think in some ways it bodes well for the Pelicans, how well they played. They should have won that game. I don't want to take anything away from the Thunder. Chet had a huge block at the end of that game, and obviously SGA had a huge bucket. With 2 minutes left, I was at the HQ studios, and we were talking. It just felt like whoever was going to be the best player over the last 2 minutes, whatever team had that guy was going to win that game. Turns out the best player over the last 2 minutes was the best player over the course of the season, and maybe the second best player in the NBA over the course of the season. which bodes well for the Thunder long term. If I'm New Orleans, it's such a missed opportunity. You don't have Zion. You have that game in your hands.
Close.
Herb Jones was amazing,
Yeah.
and he had some brutal turnovers. He wasn't alone. McCollum had some bricks. I know McCollum shot better in that second half, but you have a game where Brandon Ingram does not shoot well. He's not efficient. And McCollum is inconsistent, played better in the second half. And you have some bad turnovers, and you don't have Zion, and you still have an opportunity, John, to win that game. And whether it's McCollum taking a bad shot at the end or some bad shots in those final 2 minutes or some really just lackadaisical, not focused turnovers, it was there for the taking. There's still a lot of series to go. I love that perimeter defense for the Pelicans. I mean, those guys can ball in the defensive end, and they made life hard for the Thunder. But it's hard not to think this was a huge and maybe consequential missed opportunity for New Orleans. They had a chance to win that game. Should have won that game.
Not a great game for CJ, not a great game for Ingram. Was a great game for Trey Murphy. He's contract eligible, extension eligible this offseason. And man, he is going to get paid. He looks so good. They got to figure out what to do with that lineup to get him more minutes. All right, quickly, we got to touch on Bucks and Pacers. I think all of us were on the Pacers in this series. And then the Bucks were like, hold on a second. No Giannis in game one. Dame time, 35 points. They win this game. By the way, all 35 in the first half. Pacers did not look good except for Pascal Siakam, who had 36 and 12. Halliburton, he has not been right since the All-Star break. He had just 9 points on 7 shots. I don't know. I don't know what's going on with the Pacers. I thought that they were going to steamroll the Bucks in this series, and now it looks like they're in for a fight.
No, I mean, the Pacers are showing their age a little bit, or the lack of experience, right? The Bucks outshot them from the field, from the three, from the free throw line. They went perfect at the line compared to 39, 20, and 66 for the Pacers. So not so great. Might have misread this situation. You would think that the Pacers would take advantage of this with Giannis not being on the floor. But Damian Lillard all season has been playing really, really well when Giannis is not on the floor. So this may be the advantage that the Bucks need to kind of go ahead and get out of the first round with everything that has been working against them this season. The Pacers do not look hot at all. Definitely overestimated them, that's for sure.
Yeah, look, the moment was too big. That can certainly change in game two. You got to go through something to learn how to go through something. But Tyrese Halliburton in particular took 9 or 10 shots. I mean, John's right. Siakam was great, and Siakam's a guy that's been there and done that and obviously won everything. 7 shots. I mean, it's unacceptable.
7 shots.
But credit Doc Rivers and the defensive effort of the Bucks, right? You get credit when the other team doesn't play well or shoot well. Credit Dame being amazing in the first half. Now, there's a Doc Rivers joke here about going up 1 or 2-0 that I'm not going to make. It's a great start for Milwaukee. It's a great beginning. And if the Pacers can't play like they belong in the playoffs, this is what's going to happen. Hopefully they figure it out for game 2.
If anybody believes in Doc Rivers, it's the 3 of us. I'm sure that nothing will go wrong from here. All right, another quick break. We're going to finish out the show, and we're going to discuss the Nuggets and the Lakers. And can anybody give the Nuggets a little bit of a run here? That's next on CBS Sports Network. All right, welcome back to a Monday edition of Beyond the Arc. We got to touch on Nuggets and Lakers. We were discussing whether or not this would be a sweep or a gentleman's sweep, or if there's anything the Lakers could do to sort of confound and frustrate the Nuggets. And at least in game one, not so much. Nuggets handled that 114-103. It felt like at one point they were just like casually pulling away. They were better on the boards, fewer turnovers. They moved the ball better. You know, they're both good in the paint, but I just think the Nuggets do what the Lakers do, but they do it better. Playing again tonight, Nuggets once again favorites in this one, -7.5. Bill, any shot for the Lakers?
I mean, I guess there's never no. D'Angelo Russell starts playing well, and LeBron and AD are even better than they've been, and they were no. I mean, the answer is no, right? I think we're all in agreement, barring something none of us want, knock on wood, some sort of injury. The Nuggets are too good. I think Ash, you said this the other day. John, maybe it was you. But I thought of it watching the game. They play with their food. They mess with their food. Their food thinks maybe they can get away and survive. And then they just decide now is the time. It's usually late in the third quarter, and they just take over. They have levels beyond what the Lakers can do. This does not feel like a series the Lakers can win. Maybe it's just the second most competitive sweep in NBA history after last year's.
Yeah, I mean, looking at, the breakdown of the team stats, 2 things that stick out to me the most. Obviously, Bill, to your point, D'Angelo Russell did not have a good night. 13 points, 6 for 20 from shooting, 1 from 9 from deep, just atrocious. LeBron James, almost 40 years old, he can't do it by himself. He needs help, guys. He needs help. He's not a young man. But looking at the team stats, I mean, Denver outshot them from the three-point line. And I think the biggest thing for me also is turnovers, or should I say lack thereof. This team does not turn the ball over. Only 4 turnovers in the entire game, fewest in playoff franchise history. So on top of them trailing at various parts of the game, they trailed as many by 12, they trailed by 3 at halftime, they outscored the Lakers then 32-18 in the third quarter. So it's very hard to compete against a team that doesn't turn the ball over, so you don't get those opportunities. And when you're not shooting well, especially from the 3, it's really hard to compete against a team that is decently shooting from the 3. They shot 35%. And let's not even talk about just killing you in the paint and breaking you down. You have to go ahead and play nearly a perfect game to beat the Nuggets. And look, when a team sweeps you in the playoffs last season and then sweeps you in the regular season and you don't have a win on your record since December of 2022, sometimes a team just has your number. And listen, I give the Lakers 1, but this is going to be over in 5. There's nothing they can do to stop this. It's kind of inevitable. Sorry.
5 is generous the way that this is looking. It's been 9 in a row for Denver right now. And I think the most frustrating thing if I'm a Lakers fan is, one, for some odd reason, it wasn't LeBron's best game. He had 7 turnovers, but he only took 1 field goal attempt in the fourth quarter, which I thought was kind of squirrely. But then beyond that, Anthony Davis had an excellent game. He was really good. He played awesome defense. He had 4 blocks and
32 points from him.
Despite the fact that he played really well, the Nuggets were just like, meh, it's going to be fine. I mean, neither of these two teams like to shoot the 3. I believe the 28th and 30th respectively in 3-point attempts. And AD was pretty much clogging the paint. And the Nuggets went, all right, we'll just shoot over you tonight, I guess. There's so many more ways that the Nuggets can beat the Lakers than the Lakers can beat the Nuggets. I don't know that there's a way that the Lakers can beat the Nuggets because we haven't seen it in forever. But the Nuggets just keep doing it in different ways, and it's really impressive.
Yeah, I mean, you look at Austin Reeves, 13 points from him, right? The same as D'Angelo Russell. I think the biggest thing is if LeBron and AD don't have these monster games, you can't rely on anybody else. Whereas if you look at the Nuggets, everyone in the starting 5 was in double digits. So Michael Porter, Aaron Gordon, Jokic, Murray, Pope, and then you go into the bench. And you don't even need the bench, truthfully, at a certain point. You only really run a 7 or 8 man rotation depending on the team. But it's just everybody holds their weight in that starting unit, and that's just a drastic contrast to the Lakers, where if it's not LeBron and AD, it's sometimes just LeBron. Sometimes D'Angelo Russell decides, you know what, I'm going to have a game today, and everyone else just follows suit. It's very hard to beat a team when you're so reliant on really 3 guys having a constantly good night, and those 3 guys cannot seem to have a good night as a unit. Separately, sure. Sometimes 2 out of the 3, sure. But they need all 3 to beat this Denver team, and I just don't know if that's possible.
You guys want to quickly give a prediction on Cavs Magic tonight? Cavs minus 5.5 before we close the show.
Come on, Bill. It's your favorite series.
Take the Magic. No, but I'll take the man. They look so overmatched. I'll take the Magic because I thought they'd win the series, and we know that the Cavs have been really inconsistent. Nice start for Cleveland, long series. I'll reluctantly say Orlando wins because that's how I went at the beginning of this thing.
I'm going to go Magic as well. I think that they're going to come out more physical. I think that physicality is going to help them compete better in this series. You break down Donovan Mitchell and Garland and all those guys, and I think it works a little bit more in your favor. And you didn't see much of that in Game 1. So the physicality aspect, I think you're going to see a lot more of, and it's going to swing the series in the direction of the Magic. So I have Orlando winning this one.
Super exciting game. Can't wait to talk about that one tomorrow. That's it for us today. We're back at it tomorrow on CBS Sports Network at 2 p.m. Eastern for our NBA insider Bill Ryder, for Ashley Nicole Moss in studio. I'm John Gonzalez. Be sure to check us out on podcasts wherever you find them. Thanks so much. We'll see you guys tomorrow.